All right, we are here.
Tech Packs Are Due.
Packs Are Due podcast in semi-live, like we always say.
Yep.
Not live, but semi-live. In Mike Friton's studio in Portland, Oregon.
Yep. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
no
it's
problem.
it's I mean, honestly, the shoe person in me is like just pumped.
Yeah.
Like I love, I've been here one time, but I just feel like there's a difference of feeling that happens. Like when I was in Seattle, of course I was making footwear, but like Portland is like the place. And so it just feels great to be here. So we will introduce Mike in a second, but a little housekeeping. Always like and subscribe. Like
and subscribe to the
all that
podcast.
good stuff.
That way I can come out here more often so we can get awesome legends like Mike on the show.
Colin's here. Everyone's been requesting Colin to be present, so he dipped into his own pocket to be present.
We made it happen.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh,
That's great.
It's draining the funds.
It's okay.
It's all good. We're here. We're doing this thing. It's fun. So yeah, like and subscribe. Tell everybody. Yeah. So Colin's here. We're with Mike. And then how this episode's gonna go? We're just gonna we kind of have some prompts for Mike, but we're gonna let him kind of freestyle. But just by my way of introduction, I'll let Colin kind of take it. Mike is well known.
Yes. Yeah.
And I would say we have in this podcast kind of an idea of where we are trying to get like some of the new school guys where, you know, we're talking to Valerie, John Gisbert. We talked to those guys, Dan. And then, but at the same time, we recognize that there's a level of depth of knowledge that sits here in Portland. And so we're trying to capture that as well. So it's kind of like the two sides right now is there's a lot of young blood and like there's constant churn of new people coming into the industry. But at the same time, there are mainstays who are constantly innovating and who have kind of pioneered.
Yeah.
I mean,
Created the industry.
yeah,
Really.
like, and we're sitting with Mike and he's that. And I'm right now my inner child is here, like my footwear child. I'm
Same.
just excited I know how I feel when someone talks to me like and says the Ghost Mac's my favorite shoe or whatever. And
Right.
I'm just a guy doing a job. And I'm sure that's how Mike feels in some respects, but we all get a little giddy when we're with
some legends.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're used to that in some.
So,
Not really.
I mean, Mike being a legend, I kind of wrote out a little intro here for those of you who don't know. You know, every great company, every great product has a silent genius behind them. Today's guest is someone I hope you've heard of, but if you have not, he is an integral part of the foundation of one of your favorite and largest brands. He's worked alongside giants, and he's definitely worked on one of your favorite shoes, if not has top billing on the patent for it. It's Mike Friton. Mike, how you doing today?
Thank you.
Mike, how does all that? I mean, we've been, I feel like buttering you up since we got here, but
Yeah. It's been a long time. I've been away from Nike for 11 years, so
yeah,
it was a while ago.
but still, I mean, even outside of Nike, we still recognize your contributions.
Yeah.
Like, even still.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's no end to the amount of people that you've connected in the industry. And then also, like, you know, even though that work was, 11 years ago, right, you said, it's still being used and utilized and referenced. And, it's still just as relevant today as when you were there.
Yeah. Well, I haven't stopped. I'm still doing stuff. So
Yeah, exactly.
Please don't.
Please don't stop.
Keep it up.
Tell us a little bit about like when it all started. How did you fall into footwear?
Well, I grew up in Eugene, and I was around the running mecca, and that, and then I was inspired by Prefontaine. I was in junior high and high school when he was at his peak, and so I wanted to be a runner, and I started running, and I excelled pretty quickly. So I became one of the top runners in the state during high school.
Nice.
And then I went on, and I had opportunities to go to a lot of different schools, but I ended up walking on at the U of O because they were so packed. I mean, I don't think the coach really, at the time, Dillinger really knew much about me. So,
Right.
Anyway, so I was there for a couple of years. I ended up deciding I wasn't that good of a fit. So I quit school for a while, and then out of the blue, I got a call from Bill Bowerman, and I was going to go back into my trade, which I grew up in, which is masonry,
Nice.
and stone and brick, and anyway, and then so Bowerman invited me down to the track to help finish a water fountain that he was working on,
Yeah.
and he was working with another athlete for a while. I'm not sure what happened to that relationship, but then he had me come in and do some work. And I spent a couple days working on it, and then he thought it would take me a lot longer. So he was kind of a test. He liked to test people.
Yeah.
And so then he invited me down to work at his shop and work on shoes.
This is on a water fountain?
Yeah, at the track, at the U of O track.
Is
It's
it-
gone now. They
Doing
replaced-
some masonry work
Yeah.
at the,
Yeah.
just
Oh,
casually.
okay. I was like, wait, are you making the water fountain?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Just
Yeah.
doing the rock work.
Yeah, right.
And,
Okay.
And then, so I went down to the shop, and I thought, he was a legend to me because I really looked up to Pre and all that. But Pre passed away in my junior year in high school. But my coach in high school was actually one of Bowerman's athletes, Mike Manley. He was Olympic steeplechaser,
Right.
and he had a lot of friends, Kenny Moore and John Anderson, and then my vice principal at North Eugene High School was Bob Newland, who was kind of Bowerman's one of his best friends, and
Right.
he directed all the track meets at the U of O.
Nice.
And so I get into then I started at U of O as a walk-on. The first race I ran, it was cross country, and I didn't even have a team jersey. I just went out there and jumped in and ran. And but I ran well enough that they gave me like a junior varsity shirt kind of thing.
Yeah.
And but then I excelled. I ended up winning junior nationals my freshman year,
Man.
and I kept progressed quite a bit. And anyway, so then after I left school, and Bowerman had me come down into the shop and start making shoes.
Yeah.
And he started out just making your own running shoes. What he had you do, he had a sort of a formula that just so you can see what it's about.
Right.
And then as I progressed, I started making my own like track shoes, making track spikes,
Right.
and working with other athletes. And
Why was it a thing to make your own shoe? Like,
Yeah, what year was this at this point?
this would have been 79.
okay. So what's he like? Why are you making?
Yeah. Well, I was just he always had a way to test. He wanted you to sort of experience what you're trying to create.
Right.
Not just follow a formula that you didn't understand.
Right.
So he kind of tested you with the masonry work, saw how well you could work with your hands, and then was like, this guy could probably build shoes.
Yeah, but I mean the community in Eugene at the time, because I was one of the better runners at school,
Right.
and I know he heard about it maybe through my high school coach, and they said you got to call this guy up and get him back in the program. So anyway, so I ended up working in his lab, and as it progressed, after about 3 or 4 months, he started talking to me about going back to school, and he really encouraged me to get back into school. So I did. When I left, I was basically really upset with the coach that was at the U of O at the time, Dillinger, because he made some promises he didn't follow through on.
Sure.
And so I left school like a week before finals.
Right.
So
No
I
way.
had a whole incompletes in every class. So I had to go back and go to junior. I petitioned to get back in U of O, and they wouldn't let me in until I had two semesters at the junior college.
Right.
To show that I was, I was
Committed,
yeah. To academics,
Right.
not just running.
Right.
So I did that, and then I got back in, and then but at that point I was getting pretty good at making track spikes and stuff. So I was making my own track spikes to run in,
Right.
and we're experimenting with all kinds of things, like spike placement, drilling different holes in the plate, moving the spikes around.
Right.
And then eventually we ended up working on sandpaper bottoms,
Right.
just taking the spikes off
Yeah.
to make it super light. And it was always about making things light. That was one of Bowerman's things, is
Right.
make it light.
Sewing things with fishing line.
Yeah.
What
yeah.
was the plate made out of when you were?
We were buying plates out of Germany, Uhlsport, and they were, or sometimes some of the stuff was out of the factories that Nike had too.
Yeah.
But they were basically nylon plates.
Interesting.
They're pretty stiff, and they were different. Some were basically right in front of the ball of the foot,
Yeah.
and some were where when you get up on your toe, you're over the spikes,
Yeah.
and some were further back. So it was all this, all this sort of trial and error, different types of configurations. And I even got into carbon fiber back then. When Boeing came through once, I'm not sure how they heard about us, but they stopped and they ended up sending me all this pre-preg carbon fiber that they were building airplane wings out of.
No
Dang.
way.
And I started using that to make plates with silicon carbide. It's kind of a sandpaper grit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen those prototypes with
Yeah.
the sandpaper on the bottom.
Yeah, I still have them here.
Did you ever work on the one that's made out of fish skin?
No, we had the samples of that in the lab.
Yeah.
And Bowerman would come in with it. He always carried a suitcase around, and he'd pop it open, and he'd have all these old shoes that he had worked on, and talk about them,
Yeah.
and all kinds of, there was fish skin, there was goat skin,
Right.
Yeah.
and
All in just trying to get a durable but lightweight upper.
yeah, it was as light as possible.
As light as possible.
Yeah. So we got really super light. We actually challenged Beaverton at one time to see who could make it spike lighter. And,
Oh, nice.
And I can't remember who won. I think actually the Beaverton won, but we were down like under 2 ounces.
Dang.
Super light.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wait, so you're telling me there's some kind of phenomenon where people are making their own spikes? Like I'm a noob. Like, imagine me as a blank slate right now, because that's what I am. Like,
Yeah.
I'm hearing all of this for the first time. So you're telling me Beaverton's making shoes too? Like when you say Beaverton, are you meaning Nike? Are you meaning
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Nike,
I was like-
Beaverton. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause
like that.
Bill
was
had
the-
his own
That was the headquarters.
innovation lab,
We
basically.
were in Eugene. They were in Beaverton.
Right. So
And,
you're okay.
Yeah. So
I'm following.
And they also had Exeter at the time, which they had a bigger lab, and actually they
New Hampshire.
had
Yeah.
production in Exeter and Saco, and I think up in Portland, Maine.
Right.
Yeah.
They had production of shoes back then.
Yeah.
Right.
That was before Reebok came on with their aerobic shoe that killed the whole running thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Like early 80s.
yeah, and Nike tanked there for a while.
Dang.
Almost went under, but then the basketball came along and Jordan, all that took off again. But
Can you imagine a world where Nike fell?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
The timeline, if we're on a different timeline and Reebok won the day or something. That'd
Yeah.
be crazy.
So I think I have the world record though as a cobbler, as a runner, like the times I ran in college.
Yeah.
and actually making the entire shoe. On
Yeah,
my
like
foot.
how many of your record holding are won in shoes that you made?
No, there's nobody else doing it like that. So
No
that I know of, but I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure people have done it.
Huh.
But I was running pretty fast in those shoes. So
What was your distance? Like, what was your specialty?
I ran the mile in 1500 and the steeplechase.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I feel like I remember you telling me you were a steeplechase. Steeplechase is fascinating from a shoe perspective.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal, especially back then because they'd often forget to put any carpet in the water pit, so you're basically long jumping into concrete.
Yeah.
To get through. So my knees would be all swollen at the end of the race.
Oh.
And, even at the Pac-10 meet, just before nationals, they forgot to put the carpet in.
Oh.
About halfway through, they ran out and put something in there. But but landing in concrete when you're jumping that far is not good.
Yeah.
And wearing track spikes. It's like,
Oh man,
yeah.
that's pretty crazy. It's and I'm sure everyone knows this, but like walking on to like a college program is
Well, especially like University of Oregon.
yeah. I'm like it's not just like community college down the street. You're walking on to like
Well, and like
big
world
deal.
renowned for track and field already.
Yeah, well, we had the national champion, I think Canadian national champion, and the Norwegian or Danish national champion.
Jeez.
Yeah.
In the 1500 mile.
Right.
So I mean, there were like, I think 8 sub 4 minute milers on the
Yeah.
team.
Oh man.
I got down to a 4 minute mile, but you know, it's still it was packed, and I ended up being the. I was like second in the steeple after my sophomore year, I think.
Yeah.
And then I kind of held that position. Then my senior year, I was the top runner in steeple. So,
Man. Dang.
but yeah, and Bowerman was always my mentor along the way. You know, not just with shoes, but with telling me how to navigate the running world.
Right.
With a coach that wasn't very, you know, he wasn't very attentive to what
Right.
was going on.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. That covers up to college.
Yeah, then
so-
then I continued working with Bowerman after college. He sent me out, like I did about 3 different trips out to Exeter, New Hampshire, and some of those trips I spent time with their pattern engineers and different people to learn all the making process.
Right. Yeah.
And I learned a lot through there. Then I went about a couple of trips to Asia. Well, it was Korea at the time, Taiwan, and then sort of kind of got a feel for that. It was pretty chaotic back then. Now back then there was it had just gotten out of the time when there was a curfew at night, and there was no subway. The cars were just jammed. You know, it was like crazy town,
Right.
and a lot of pollution.
Yeah.
But now everything's super. You go to Asia now, everything's ultra modern.
Right.
You know, it's a totally different world.
Yeah.
But I saw it at that sort of transition and the factories. I mean, all the midsoles and stuff. They were grinding out of foam.
Yeah.
Right. Called cut and buff, right?
They weren't molded.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it just all these people lined up on these buffing machines, just covered with
Yeah.
powder.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had like a lot of the workers. They had programs at the work site where they would get study, like sort of work study. That way they could study for college or high school
Right.
or college. So that they're getting that extra educational benefit for working there.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't a great environment, but that's changed a lot and gotten better too.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, that's kind of a phenomenon. Like we haven't. It's just bringing to mind like historically how shoes are made versus now, and we just like barely broached that subject in our last episode. Where like there was a designer at Brooks for like 30 years, Tom
Yeah.
Dean, and we kind of talked about his like he'd worked there so long that they were faxing sketches.
Yeah.
Like and stuff like that. Like, like what's the process of making like when?
Well, even back then
then.
it was teletype. It wasn't faxing.
Yeah.
It's just like like Morse code coming through.
Yeah. So you were like FedExing
Yeah.
packages
Like
of
what do you, what's
I don't
this
even know
like?
if FedEx was around, but
Yeah.
they were shipping things, air freighting things. Yeah.
Man. Were you over there a lot for development? Were you like?
No, it was just projects that Bowerman wanted to see them go through. A kids shoe project, and I came up with this Velcro idea that was part of a kids shoe. Like it was my first patent.
Nice.
It wasn't the Velcro; it was the mechanism, how the straps interlaced.
Right.
Oh.
It was funny after that patent expired, Puma picked it up for a while.
Sure.
But Nike, it was just a short little window that Nike used it for.
What is it? You get a solid 16 years, and then everyone else gets to use it, right?
Well, I developed it for Steeplechase because if the Velcro came loose, it wouldn't fly apart
Right.
because the straps kind of interlocked.
Yeah.
So, and that's where kids would be great for kids. So if they comes loose, shoes don't fly off.
Yeah, right.
Oh man, that's
So,
great.
Yeah, and then I worked until the early mid '80s in Bowerman's lab.
Right.
And we developed, we worked gymnastics, basketball, some football, a lot of track, running. It was high school, working with high school kids, collegiate kids, and then also Nike's elite running team at the time, Athletics West, working with them.
Oh wow.
So I was working with a lot of different athletes at different levels. And so now you talk about performance today. Like I lived it and breathed it. I was a runner. I built my own shoes. I built shoes for other athletes, their needs. And they usually they ignored us unless they were injured. So they're coming to us with their real problems that we have to solve. So that, and I still do shoes for like kids that need special needs and stuff.
Right.
And again, that's about fit and performance. And now I call it dynamic fit.
Right.
And I teach classes online with that.
Right.
And that's really the big missing piece of the puzzle right now, I think, in the footwear industry.
Right.
It's all about performance has kind of become a fashion buzzword rather than having real meaning.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
they'll put a piece of, a tiny little piece of Kevlar on there or something and say, "Oh, performance."
Yeah,
But
right.
what is it actually doing?
Right.
So
Yeah.
Working for Bill in kind of the lab, right? In college, out of college, with with Athletics West, with athletes, specific athletes, you're hand making these things specific to each of these athletes. How does that then transition? Obviously, you're making patents. Nike's benefiting off of those patents that you guys are creating. How does that then transition to is there a gap between you working in the lab and then going to work specifically for Nike, or was that a?
Well, I was a Nike employee working in the lab.
Got it. Okay.
So that, and there were 3 of us that, well, there were more than that, but 3 primary people that did, that ended up, 2 others that ended up in Beaverton. So it was always like 3 or 4 people working in the lab, and most usually athletes.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what's different too, I think, being an athlete and then getting into the industry. A lot of people now they're just coming from, design school or something. They don't have that at least elite, and even elite athletic experience.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Or the idea that you have to look at athletes to learn what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't see that. That wasn't a priority even in Beaverton. They would work with athletes, but they were like getting out into the field and actually watching them, how they're moving, so you're learning the nuances of what's going on.
Yeah.
Because every athlete's different.
Yeah.
And every event is different, and learning all of that. And that gets back to the dynamic fit that I teach now. It's about all those little nuances of movement that go on when you're building something on a last. It's a static form, so you have these static device for your foot, basically.
Right.
But to make it really function properly, it's got to work dynamically with your foot, and that's the big problem right now that I see in the industry.
Yeah.
They're just not. A lot of designers don't get it because they don't see it. They don't experience it.
Right.
But it's there. You just got to get out and do it.
Yeah. I think that perfectly kind of leads into the next, topic. I think we kind of understand you came from, went back to school. Bill kind of brought you under his wing, and then become a Nike employee, working with these athletes, doing this great work. But then kind of what you're talking about now, the differences between the way that you worked back then and what these cats coming from industrial design school, are doing. While you were at Nike for a time, you did have the title as lead innovator or innovator, and kind of this idea of senior innovator.
Yeah.
So there's this idea of design versus innovation. I feel like you kind of ride that line. What are your thoughts on that, like innovation versus design work?
Yeah, there's definitely a distinction, especially in the company. Designers are basically usually considered great illustrators, and that was never my skill. I mean, I can draw things, but I don't. I work better building it, and then learning as I build. So I have an idea, I'll start building it, and then I'll see where it needs to change as I'm building it, and then I change it. And so you're dialing it in and getting closer and closer to the ideal form that you really want to get to.
Right.
Where if you just draw something and then you send it off to a factory or a sample room, and 30 or 40 other people are touching it and trying to make it, it's a different way of getting things done. It still can work, but it takes longer too. I can get in this. When I was at Nike, when I went up to Beaverton eventually, I'd show up with a sample that I made of my idea.
Yeah.
Not a sketch, but here, look at this, and
put it on.
And that's all. And it actually works pretty well in a meeting like that because they can pick it up and feel it and touch it and see what it's about, rather than just a flat 2D drawing basically.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of like pointing when you have a drawing. It's like and then it does this and this and it looks like this, and you're just kind of like trying to like look people in the eye and be like, right, get it? Like, whereas it would be amazing to just pass around like, here's the idea in real life in form.
Yeah. At the time when I came up to Nike too, they put me in the ape group when I first got there as advanced product engineering.
Yeah.
And that was the elite or the most advanced part of the development at Nike at that time.
It's okay. You can call it elite. You were in it. You were in it, so it was elite
for a short time. But
I also I don't want to derail you on this, but it is every time I hear, like, I think Nike's really elite at naming their ape group. I'm like,
well, there's the kitchen, and then the kitchen became like then there was the zoo. Then,
and it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, the pantry.
Yeah, the pantry. There you go. The sink.
Explorer.
All
those things.
But you're in the ape room.
Yeah, and at that time they had a longer timeline on development, and because that's why they were outside the normal categories. But the categories were getting frustrated, or not necessarily more. It was more about the ape group. Those guys were getting frustrated because the categories wouldn't pick up their ideas because they had their own agenda, and so they decided that they'd try breaking up the ape group and putting advanced teams in each category.
Yeah.
But just before that happened, they decided that they wanted to put me into a category just to learn and development, to learn more of the business process and how everything worked, that end of it.
Sure.
So I had a choice of track and field or ACG, and I chose ACG. Primarily because of there was too much politics in running.
Sure.
And Bowerman was always putting those guys down, so I kind of had that stigma about the Bowerman, because Bowerman was always, you got to do it better.
Sure.
So anyway,
ACG, that's awesome. What year is this when you select ACG?
It was like the mid '80s.
Man.
Or not mid-80s. Sorry, the mid '90s.
Very cool.
Because I went up to Beaverton, early mid '90s. And then I really enjoyed that because that was my second sort of favorite thing, was getting outdoors and like trail running and doing that kind of stuff. And just before I left the ape group, I developed this shoe that ended up being called Goat Tech, and I was mimicking a goat's foot.
Yeah. And
I get into ACG, and that Goat Tech was like the top trail running shoe in the runner's world, and they're going, how could that should be our part of what we're doing. I said, well, but eventually it was labeled ACG.
Right.
Yeah. But
I think they called it G Tech, right?
Yeah.
At one point.
Yeah.
But the inner section is softer rubber than the outer section, right?
Soft pods. So when you first touch the ground, there's a soft pod, then you hit the harder, firmer. It's kind of like dual suspension.
Yeah.
But the soft pods also would map to the surface, rather than being a hard lug that pitched you all over the place.
Right.
And so having that mapping the surface also gives you better traction.
Right.
Yeah. I bet you also get better ground feel as well.
Yeah. It's like softer impact, and but not lacking stability, because you get right down to those harder lugs. For
They
stability.
kind of catch you.
Yeah, so you get more surface area.
Yeah, and I just got that out of I was walking through Barnes and Noble and saw a book on goat's feet. Or was on goat, and the mountain goats, and it's called The Beast, the Color of Winter, and there's a really good description in there of what's going on with their feet. And then we did a couple other things like that as well, but like looking at camel's feet and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, and it's really great learning from nature to try to. Which really fit well in the ACG category. Yeah. So we were a lot of the stuff going on then was about trying to mimic stuff in nature, kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. That's super cool. Who were you working with in ACG? Do you remember?
It was Seehofer.
Was Steve McDonald there still?
No, Steve McDonald had just left, I think.
Okay.
There was.
Others.
My mind's in a different spot right now, but there was some really interesting people working in the category at the time, and we had designers coming and going.
Yeah.
What is there anything else from ACG that's like stands out to you that was fun? That was.
Well, I was always sort of intrigued about how they're making this stuff. So I'd go to the factory and I'd sit down and learn about what they were making and see where they had problems and try to help problem solve.
Oh, that's cool.
And one of the things was. And also looking at the business side, like duty on the shoes. Where I was trying to get, because designers would create these beautiful illustrations and the best materials. Yeah, right. Then we get this first samples back, and the FOB was way too high, so we had to dumb them down basically.
Of course, right.
So looking for ways to do that without compromising the quality. Yeah. And one thing I came up with that really changed things, they're still using it, was taking a neoprene and putting a TPU top coat on it. Yep. Because when we had neoprene, we were getting charged textile duty because it had a textile surface on it, right? Which was the highest duty. Yeah. Right. Once I put the TPU top coat on it, you could even emboss it like leather. Yeah. Then we got rubber plastic, which just lowered. We were getting great. We were killing everybody else for a while, FOB, because we had that process in line. Right. So our sandals were doing great. Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. That's a crazy deep cut for people who don't know that, like, we're getting into the FOB cost and like how to get around a cost, a tariff on specific material.
I wasn't just replacing it with something. I was inventing a new material to go into it that would do that
with better proprities for.
Yeah, it was much more durable and much better looking as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think they still use that on the slides. Like,
yeah, there was the company I was working with was called Chifa. I don't think they're around anymore, but they actually called it because my last name is Friton, and my nickname was Frito in college and stuff. Nice. So they were calling it Mito Buck for a while.
Mito Buck.
To kind of go with my name.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But they changed that right away because they didn't want to. I think they're worried about some kind of.
Yeah, you would have charged them likeness fees,
for sure.
It was funny when I saw that. But
how long are you in ACG for?
Almost 3 years, I think.
And
then I was really getting burnt out because they were starting loading. Like as it progressed, every season I would get more and more difficult, like the more difficult projects and more projects, to where I was just way overloaded with the number of projects.
That's how it goes.
And so I wanted to go. I wanted to get to Asia anyway to their research centers. Yeah. And so I tried to get into Taiwan. It's called the RDC. Yep. And I think it might have been with Feng Tai. I'm not sure though. That particular research center. I think they're still around, but anyway, I did that, but then my wife stayed back until the kids got out of school. Sure. And then she was going to come over, but she had to get a physical and found out she had a lump in her breast. So,
oh man!
So we had to go through all that stuff, and I came back. Then I kind of I was in an ATE group that they had for a while, which was Advanced Technology Engineers. Yep. And that was sort of a new ape group, so to speak, but it wasn't really funded that well, and it wasn't. There were a lot of challenges because the category still didn't want to. They didn't like who are you guys? You know.
Yeah, of course.
We have our own.
Still didn't want to play.
Well, wait, they had their own teams. So,
right.
the innovator, the advanced groups in every category were getting frustrated because they didn't have a longer timeline like they had with Ape.
Yeah.
And they couldn't, everything had to be compressed, and
Right.
some of the ideas you need takes more time to develop.
Yeah.
So
As always.
then AT didn't last long, and I was just floating around. I called myself a floater because I'd cruise around and talk to designers
Yeah.
and see what they're working on, and then run down to the sample room, make something for them, come back and show them.
That's awesome.
Like, what do you think about this?
That's awesome.
So kind of helping them move their stuff, and they loved it.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while, and they ended up giving me a desk finally in the airbag air group,
Right.
and I hung out with those guys for a while, and that was fun.
Yeah.
They were trying to find new solutions to airbags that because of the type of the gas, the SF6 gas they were using was being banned. So they had to come up with new ideas, and so I was
Interesting.
kind of plugging into that.
It's nitrogen now? Right?
Yeah, just nitrogen. Yeah. That's a long story there. The long story I'm not going to get into, but
Of course.
anyway, then I ran into Michael Donahue in the hallway one day, and he goes, "We're starting this new group. You want to join us?" And I go, I said, "I'm not sure. What is it?"
Yeah.
And so he started explaining it to me, and he was getting together with Tinker Hatfield. Tinker always had a little entourage of people he worked with,
Right.
and then Bruce Kilgore, and anyway, there were a bunch of different people that were in there, and so finally said, "Okay, I'll do it." And we ended up in this space in the Mia Hamm building that was where the architects sat that developed the whole campus.
Right. Okay.
And so it's just open, nothing finished in there.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we're all sitting in desks all over this. So it was just an open workspace. It was great.
Yeah.
I liked it. And there was one little closed off area with a glass wall, basically. And in that room we had, toys, drum sets, all kinds of things. We'd go in there and just make a lot of noise and
Oh, okay.
bounce a basketball,
Very
whatever.
cool.
Yeah.
So we had the playroom, and then the
Wait, Nike just had just a room full of.
no, this is long gone. This is,
I know, but
so we were in there for about 3 months or so,
Right.
and then they put in some cubes. They started cleaning it up a little bit, and then I remember the day like Eric Sprunk came in,
yeah.
because this is like a group they just threw together, and
Yeah.
most of the company didn't even know we were there.
Yeah.
And Sprunk comes in. He's the guy holding the purse strings,
Oh,
for
sure.
the group. And he goes, "What the hell is going on in here?" I remember when he stepped in the door, he just looked around and goes, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah.
And so we went back and talked to Tinker and the other, I think probably Michael. And I think he said, "I'll give you 6 months."
Right.
And then the free was being all that. There were a lot of things that we were working on at the time. And so in 6 months, we came out. There was some amazing progress, and
Right.
and then so then it started to change. Then they wanted more. So then more cubes, more people.
That's how it goes.
Just kept growing.
Was,
then it started splintering off. Then the Explorer group splintered off, and
Yeah.
all these pantry, and they all splintered off because it's like.
So was that group that you're first talking about? Is that the first kitchen?
Yeah, well, we had a room. When we were still a big open space, we'd have like a weekly meeting or thing, and we'd sit in a big circle in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there one day, and Michael Donahue goes, "We have to have a name. We want to come up with a name for our group." And I wanted to just stay out of it. I kept my mouth shut. And then everybody's saying innovation. It was innovation this and innovation that. Innovation.
Right.
And then he asked me. He goes, "Mike, what would you call it?" And I go, "I don't know. We should call it something so people know where we are. We're behind the kitchen." And and it was just like, and everybody in the group said, "No, we don't want people to know where we are. We like having this.
Exactly.
We like it this way."
Yeah.
No way.
So then Michael came back a couple weeks later and he goes, "We got a name, Innovation Kitchen."
No way.
Wow.
So-
Wow. So you named the Innovation Kitchen.
I'm not going to take credit for that. But that's it's just,
Dude, that is amazing. So the Presto and the Alpha Project, are they born out of that first kitchen experience?
no, the Presto was before
that. So
long
the
before
free
before
comes
that.
out of there.
I was in Mia Hamm, I think, when we were working on the Presto,
Yeah.
and I think it might have been
In your floater
between
days.
the Ape and ACG, somewhere in there.
Right.
And yeah, we were just it would be me and Kevin Hoffer and Toby Hatfield. We were playing around with this idea, and I started building this new upper, and it was this real stretchy. And so Toby and I were trying it on, and go, man, this feels like a sock. We should,
Yeah.
this is great, and we should size them like socks. Instead of having normal sizing, we'll size them like socks. And then we thought small, medium, and large, and at the time we called it the Comfy because it was so comfortable.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
we this Comfy project, and
Yeah.
and then Kevin Hoffer was doing the midsole and all the cage and all that kind of stuff, and Toby was trying to shop it around, get everybody into it. Yeah, and no category wanted it, so he took it to Parker, and Parker tried it on. He goes, "We're doing this." So,
Interesting.
Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah, and then it just took off, and
Yeah, like how was that project born? Was it just like
that's just brainstorming, sitting
Yeah.
around, where you have
Playing around
where
with
you have
spacer mesh, right?
I had a sewing machine at my desk. I was just stitching things together
that's awesome?
and creating these patterns, the similar patterns that I'd created in Bowerman Lab, the same kind of concept for the pattern.
Yeah.
It was like a 3-piece.
I was gonna say the
basically.
Presto's very minimal
Yeah.
pieces.
And it was a spacer stretch mesh,
Yeah.
and it kind of had came off of sort of an extension of what Tinker did with the Hirachi.
Right.
They had
Yeah.
the same kind of similar patterning.
Yeah. Because the Hirachi was made out of neoprene. Though.
Yeah. And it goes back to even if you think about the DNA, it goes back to even to the aqua jogger and all that kind of stuff. Just an extension of that.
Right. Interesting.
Anyway, then that became so, it just took off like a rocket, and I think it was like over a huge volume that and they're making a lot of money. They were going to spin it off as a separate business, kind of like Jordan or something.
Yeah, sure.
And but then they let every category try to do their own, and they botched it
Yeah, right.
because they didn't understand what we were doing, and they were doing things where it was all really difficult to get in and out of them.
Right.
They didn't have the same sort of ease of use and comfort,
Yeah.
and that it needed more sort of direction.
Right.
And I think it was great learning for all the people around about that, but making sure to have somebody's sort of leading the charge.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, Nike, it's like it almost sounds like when there's so many teams, you almost have to have someone communicate the theory behind the project.
Yeah.
So
Like the
everyone
grander
kind of
vision.
understands, like the top level, like this is what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, back then, and I think it
this,
still happens. Each category, they were kind of like stealing concepts and ideas from other categories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
I've
kind of
heard,
what happened there. And
I've heard Dwayne talk about that too.
yeah.
Where like ideas just get passed around.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
look,
you
it's
look
working.
over
It's
so
working
much-
for them. It's got to be working for
Yeah,
us
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Let's
exactly.
let's grab
Shoulder.
that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
It'd be like
I
a
know I'm
design
guilty
review.
of that. Like,
Well, design is iterative, right? So
Yeah.
like, how much is stealing and how much is influence?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
like
maybe I
question.
probably shouldn't call it stealing, but still borrowing.
Borrowing.
yeah,
There you go.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's borrowing once the patent is expired.
Yeah.
So Presto, you're doing the upper.
Yeah. That was my
The
contribution.
other, like the other parts are being done.
Yeah.
Elsewhere.
And the size, what Toby and I brainstorming on the sizing, small, medium, and large.
Yeah.
And then the big part of that too was supposed to be, okay, we started out with 9 sizes that fit everybody because we went extra XX and X whatever
Oh,
to
wow.
small, medium, and large.
Yeah.
And I think we had 9 sizes that fit almost everybody.
Man.
And I thought then the next season we'd go to 7, then to 5, then to 3,
Yeah.
and then the ultimate goal would be 1. I call it one size fits all.
Yeah.
So you're just shooting for the moon, and you could. We were talking about breaking up the midsole, making the midsole elastic, so it becomes more and more dynamic, and you have this shoe that's just. And the retailers love the idea of having fewer
Yeah,
exactly.
items in the, customers of course loved it because it sold like crazy.
Yeah.
Very simple. Like the marketing the marketing for the Presto and everything too. It kind of was like a perfect storm.
Well, half a size is a sixth of an inch,
Yeah.
and a full size is a third of an inch, and you can feel
You can feel it.
Yeah.
depending on the material the shoe's made out of, you can feel like a half size.
Yeah.
And so if
Exactly.
you make something really dynamic and stretchy, then you can get a lot more out of each size.
Right.
And
Yeah, I when we came here, when I came to Mike's studio and we did that little workshop for about a week, I went back guns blazing. I was like, we're gonna start doing some stuff here at
Yeah,
Brooks,
yeah.
and quickly got shut down. But I did do
Yeah, yeah.
a presentation, like saying like, hey, like we could make, like this is not an idea outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
And we have enough compounds nowadays. We have all these things where it's like,
well, if you're
Like
talking
we
about
can-
like
yeah.
sustainability,
yeah, right.
using less to make more,
Yeah.
that's a key factor. But yeah, those
Yeah.
kind of things, though. I mean, the footwear world really isn't. I mean, they talk about innovation and being open to new ideas and stuff,
Right.
but it's really not in a
business.
yeah, it's really
In a lot of ways.
it's got a pretty narrow field of view.
Yeah, right.
And you're outside of that, just like the Presto was outside. When I
Yeah.
like right away, marketing got back to me and to us about the being small, medium, large. They go, we have to go back to full sizes. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going, and I fired back. No, I'm going the other way. Making fewer sizes.
Making fewer sizes now.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
it's 7. Email me again. It's
But
6.
they did pull it back to full sizes though.
Right.
Yeah, right.
That's because of the box that they had to send to retailers was shrinking. They wanted to keep the retailers buying a bigger volume.
Oh, yeah.
And that was before internet sales. I mean, having a Presto today would be a rock star because you
Yeah.
wouldn't have all the returns.
Yeah, right.
Man.
Yeah, you just like get the general size that fits you and it's
Right.
going to work.
Right.
Right.
Man.
But it'd have to be that small, medium, and large concept. Just going full sizes, I think, isn't enough. It's got to
Yeah.
be even more dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you need at least 2 sizes or more per shoe.
Yeah. Nice. Shoot.
Me?
Why'd you just look at me? No, I'm really liking just hearing about the story of these products.
Yeah.
Especially
One-
Presto and stuff.
One thing that I know you're super passionate about, and then that I love too, is the woven, the Nike woven.
Yeah. Well, I was Mike Avini, another designer at Nike. The work was close collaboration with Tinker all the time. He was in his little cubicles, nailing little strips of webbing on a last. And I looked at it and I go, because it looked familiar to me. I go, wow, they do that all the time down in Mexico. And so he said, okay, go down there and find out how they do it.
Yeah.
No way.
So I did.
Yeah.
And I went down to learn how to weave the webbing into the insole.
Huaraches.
Yeah, well, they're not. It's just different. What most people think of as a warachi is a little different, but
Than what this is.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. They're bigger straps, not the little
Got it.
smaller straps. So anyway, I learned how to do that. I brought it back. I went down with another pattern engineer, and we diagrammed it and like kind of figured it out. And we also Cole Haan was down in Leon where we went to as well, down in that part of Mexico, and we got a bunch of their materials from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we went out and brought it back, showed it to Mike Vini, and at the same time I was exploring tessellation, and I invited a quilt maker from the East Coast out because she wrote a book about tessellations in quilts,
Right.
and to show us how to tessellate. So we're using that to cut all the pieces that went along with that as well, and because the webbing you use, you measure it to a certain length and then weave it in.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
the tessellated parts, there was no waste, or very little waste.
Right.
So that became Nike's first sustainability shoe
Yeah.
because there was almost no waste in the upper.
Yeah. Talk about tessellated parts. Like, what is that? Like,
That's where, like a puzzle.
yeah.
There's no voids.
Right.
Everything fits. Every piece you cut out is part of the shoe, and there's no voids between it.
Yeah.
The problem with that, we ran into with that though, is on the cutting machines they have, the plotter type cutters.
Yeah.
They it's programmed in to have a margin around each piece.
Right. Yep.
So we basically had to create this whole field of parts and say it was one piece,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they would cut through the field.
Oh man.
But we had to trick the machine to get it to
Right.
it.
Had to give it like a specific cut path.
Yeah, so most most projects you're working on, even if you think you have it tesslated,
it's not.
The plotter is gonna put a margin around it. So
Right.
so anyway, that's
Yeah.
the engineering side of it. And that's what I love getting into those details and then
Right.
figuring problem solving around that.
Yeah, I did a whole thing on like the efficiency of pattern efficiency, and a lot of times like I would run into like, because it's not like you're just creating like a literal 2D puzzle. It's like you have a 3D shape, and a lot of times like the heel, like in order to get a heel to look like a heel and like on a shoe, like there's like a bit of bulging that happens or something. Then the patterning isn't exactly like a triangle.
Yeah.
It's not exactly like a whatever shape. And
Well, there's a lot of tricks to getting to dealing with that, whether it's pleating or like there's kirigami where you're cutting and causing relieving
right.
things. There's a lot of different sewing techniques, and there's a whole.
Yeah.
You can write a whole book about all the techniques for taking basically flat goods and turning them into 3D.
Yeah.
That's why I study origami. I teach origami a bit.
Nice.
And kirigami.
Yeah.
Because I got into all those just because of that. I wanted to learn how to be a better pattern maker.
Yeah. How long are you in Mexico doing like, how long does it take you to figure out like weaving and like the technique and
It's
stuff?
it's actually a really simple technique. They're super fast at it, but I'm slower. But we were down there for like a week,
right.
so it wasn't. We were probably in the talking, on the ground with the people for 3 days maybe.
Yeah.
It wasn't a long time to do it.
Is it like something where like you found somebody already doing this technique, or is it like
we went to
walk around?
we went to I studied Spanish in college, so I spent time down there in school. So I went to the it was basically a craft type industry. You see they make those Huarache type shoes everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's why I was aware of it. And when I went down to Leon, I bought some because we wanted to have a full toe cover.
Yeah.
So I bought some that had that property, and then I asked him, where do you make these? And then I went out to the factory, out to the little town it's called Samayo.
Right.
Went out there and hooked up with some people and learned how to do it.
Yeah. Because it's like, because I'm just trying to piece together, hopefully for our audience, is like, I mean, this is all, I mean, obviously before tech, like any tech, like I'm not just texting somebody and saying, hey, do you know a Huarache maker? Like, it's like you're going down,
You're like
boots on the ground finding this stuff.
I knew a guy there that was a shoemaker in Guanajuato, which is right outside of Leon.
Nice.
So I spent a little time there, and I met this boot maker.
Yeah.
Right.
And so he took me into Leon and showed me all the resources there.
Right.
And then
That's obviously how you see Cole Haan over there in Leon as well.
And then when we did that, we had him actually take us to the town where they made it,
Right.
made the stuff.
Nice.
That's so cool.
What sort of material is like? Are they using leather?
It's all leather down there. Okay. Yeah, it was new for them to use webbing and elastic.
Right.
And that's what we got from Cole Haan for them to use.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And we were using real lightweight foam bottom on it, and they're used to do like a chunk of rubber tire or something on the bottom.
Yeah.
But we wanted lightweight foam. So.
Oh man.
But they made samples for us.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you just showing up and saying, like, check this out. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was there multiple trips? Just like one?
Just one. One trip. Yeah.
High school study abroad. Fast forward, you're in the cubicle with Mike Avani. You're like, Psh, I know where those are made. Go back to Leon. That's crazy.
You just call them up and say, hey, we're coming down
to Mexico.
You want to go to Mexico for a week?
Yeah.
What else did you do there? I know you didn't just weave shoes over there.
Well, the first trip to Guanajuato, when I was in school, I was down in Cuernavaca, down south by Mexico City.
Yeah.
But then I took my nephew down on when he was in high school. His Spanish teacher set up this sort of program to take a bunch of high school kids down to Guanajuato. but they needed chaperones. So I went along with my nephew as a chaperone. And then they let me stay with the guy who was a bootmaker because they knew I was a shoe guy.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, there you go.
so it just all, works that way.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like traditional boots, like
There were. He could do that, but he was more. He was. They actually had a family business making work boots, like lace up boots.
Oh, okay.
At one time, but when I was there, like it had washed away in a flood. Their whole factory got washed away.
Oh man.
But he was still doing it kind of as a cobbler in a little shop.
Right.
So.
Oh, that's cool. Did he let you jump on and just like start making?
Not production samples for him.
Not there, no.
Yeah.
There was when we went down to the little town, we were playing. They let us play around with the weaving.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
But then after I left Nike, I started this place.
Yeah.
And I continued doing things like that, similar. I've worked with all the major companies.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of the barefoot companies also, and that's kind of more where I'm at right now. Wanting to be more minimal, wanting to be more natural.
Yeah.
I see a lot of problems with the barefoot running sort of community, in that they just think widen the toe box and lower the heel and you're done.
Right.
But there are so many other things going on that in the interface between the shoe and the dynamic movement of the foot.
Right.
Right.
And that's why I started my dynamic fit class.
Right.
To try to. That's my attempt to try to facilitate change.
Yeah.
Sure.
To try to improve it, and not just for barefoot, but also for the other shoes as well.
Yeah.
Because ideally you want the shoe to follow the foot, not be forcing the foot to try to follow the shoe, which ends up causing all kinds of health problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good time to transition.
Yeah.
Do you, unless there's anything else you want to ask about the early years,
No,
Mike?
you're just blowing my mind over here.
Yeah,
You're
I
naming
know.
the innovation kitchen. You're going to Mexico for a week, hanging out, weaving shoes.
I mean, there's things I feel like digging into, but
for it.
well, the last time I came, I remember specifically sand running and like
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a shoe waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Nike tried to do it
right.
with the Joyride.
Yeah,
and
that's
putting the
right,
beads
the
in there. And that came from something I brought to the back, 10, probably 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's actually long before that. In the Bowerman Lab, I was kind of playing around with that because we had these little bags full of sand that we put the shoe on when we were pounding the soles on, so it didn't scar the shoe.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, if I just had a way to take the sand out running,
Yeah.
then I wouldn't have to go to the sand dunes to train. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I wanted to create a shoe that was like training in sand.
You
And-
train in the dunes? Like is
Yeah, they have Oregon dunes. Yeah,
is it
that's a lot of great athletes train in sand
hold on.
because it's low impact.
There's dunes in Oregon.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
just like
all over the place.
It's low impact, but like high effort, right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good work, but you can go out it's kind of like with when I learned about cycling because I switched to cycling for a while. You can go hard one day and get back on the bike and go hard the next day, and
Yeah.
you can do that because there's not impact.
Yeah.
Your body isn't so sore that you have to stop and recover. And in the dunes, if you're running the same way, you go out there and run, and it's like you don't have that pounding impact, so you can get a much higher level of training
Yeah.
without the impact.
Yeah.
So it'd be great if you had a shoe that mimic that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't want all the weight, which actually that might not be such a bad idea either. But
Yeah, like a resist.
Yeah.
You got what is it? You had the East Bay jumping shoes,
I had
the ISO shoes.
the big like
Yeah.
4-foot platform.
But what
shoes from
I
back in the
found
day,
was
but-
if I take make a lycra bag and
Yeah.
stuff it full of beads,
yeah.
and I can stuff it at different amounts to get different pressures,
Right.
and then you can mimic that sort of ideal spot in the sand where you want to run.
Right.
Because you don't want to run. Usually, you don't want to run it where it's
Super loose.
like concrete right at the surf,
Yeah.
and then it's like you're sinking in quicksand up in the
Right.
dune. So you find that place where it's just right, or even in the dunes. In the Oregon dunes, they get a lot of rain, and so you can, especially after it rains, sometimes you get a really nice, that perfect feel.
Oh, right.
Anyway, so
Interesting.
that's the idea. So I built a number of concepts like that. I still have them, and
I put one on.
so then when they were doing the Joyride, like in 2013, they invited me back to Nike to kind of help work on that beanbag concept.
Yeah.
And so I was helping with it, but they wanted to put it in a midsole. I go, that's not the idea. It's got to have this. But they said they couldn't do it the way I wanted it because it looked like a rubber raft on your foot. I go, so what?
Yeah.
Right.
What do Crocs look? What do Crocs look like?
Yeah.
Lean
Who
into it.
cares?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they couldn't get over it. They had to.
Yeah.
You got to contain it.
Yeah.
They did a weird job of like marketing it as like making it fun, but your idea makes total sense. Like you're training in sand.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I did find cool about that shoe is that the Strobel is a stretchy material, so that you could feel.
Yeah, you're right on the sand.
You're right on the
beads. And
Even though they're in the
I thought
midsole.
about doing something natural like flax seeds or things like that.
Yeah. Right.
Or even popcorn seeds. People think, well, popcorn seeds are too hard, but sand is a crystal.
Yeah.
So it's not about the hardness of the seed. It's just about allowing it to move.
The displacement.
Displacement. And that displacement can be engineered by the strength of the lycra or the sidewalls.
Right.
So
Got it. And then you're
Interesting.
tuning the pressure
yeah,
based off
you
of
could
that
have
too.
a soft, medium, and hard or whatever.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
have it tuned to different body weights if you
Yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah.
But anyway, that
Maybe we should cut that out for your patent.
yeah, that didn't fly. So that's why I'm hoping it does someday with somebody.
That's like one of those things where, like, I remember, like, the marketing was cool and there's the beads and blah. But I mean, I'm saying this as somewhat of a Nike fan. Like, it did die pretty fast.
It was quick.
That was gone. That was like in
it
and
wasn't.
out.
It wasn't.
I'm like, but the pure intent, right?
Yeah,
like,
it was interesting, but it wasn't. It wasn't the original. At least,
Oh,
at
man,
least my
that's-
original concept.
That's so awesome. So in the 80s, I could find Mike Friton on the dunes running up.
Yeah.
Training.
We go
Long flowing hair.
We go exactly. We ran out of Florence over in that area.
Oh shoot!
It wasn't.
Okay.
We didn't go over there that often. It was about an hour out of town.
Right.
But occasionally we go out there and
I don't want this to sound wrong, but the most explosive thing in my mind right now is that Oregon has dunes. I didn't even.
Yeah, you didn't even know.
I'm not a native Oregonian. I'm here by transplant into the footwear industry.
There's
so I don't
dunes out
know.
in Eastern Oregon that are the tallest dunes I think in North America.
I knew there were dunes in Idaho. I've been to dunes
It's out
in Idaho.
past Christmas Valley,
Okay.
which Christmas Valley is a desert. It's not
Yeah.
there's nothing but Christmas there.
I didn't.
My family owns land in Christmas Valley, I think.
Yeah?
An alfalfa farm or something.
It's just a dry. It was
like silty.
it was a sales pitch that somebody put together to try to sell a desert to people.
Oh my
down,
gosh.
down in LA, yeah.
Oh,
and a lot of
no
people
way.
bought it thinking he had a picture of the one tree that was there with
Yeah.
here's this.
That was my grandpa, dude. That's when my grandpa bought land in Christmas Valley.
Man,
Yeah.
how's that going?
I think the
my-
property taxes on the outweighed the value.
Yeah.
My dad bought property out there too.
Yeah.
It was cheap.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people bought it.
Man, but there's dunes. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to.
Dude, we're gonna have to go run on the
Looks
dunes.
like I'm
after
going
this.
now. I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
go
one
to
of the
dunes.
Nike posters that they made was out in the dunes out in Eastern Oregon with the big tall ones,
Yeah.
and somebody running in the dunes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
That's cool.
Man, that's so cool. Because I remember the sand. I still thought it was running on the beach, but now that makes a lot more sense that it's like uphill running on dunes
yeah,
for training purposes.
yeah,
That's awesome.
Running on wet sand at the beach though is super nice too.
yeah,
But like exactly like you said, there's a gradient, right? Like,
yeah. You want to find that sweet
Yeah,
spot.
you can.
Yeah.
I tried doing it barefoot once. I learned that's you, unless you got really strong calluses on your feet, don't do it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have bloody feet
Oh man.
because it's
It
very
was just-
it was very abrasive.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Oh man. Well, that's good to know because I probably would have been out there barefoot.
It's okay for a little while, but if you're, I would, the day I tried it was like on a 10-mile run. It was, you get 5 miles out and look at your feet, they're all bloody. It's like, now I'm going to get back.
Oh, man.
I had to go out into the surf about knee deep.
Yeah.
To where so my feet were frozen.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel the pain. And
Yeah, you didn't feel
back.
the salt water stinging you either?
It stung. But it was better than...
better than sand getting into your abrasions. Oh,
Man. See, that's the stuff I like is like where your mind goes because you're pulling. We talked about Goat Tech. We talked about Presto with just like the small, medium, large. We talked about sand. You know, it's just like an experience or something that you notice, and then you're seeing how that applies into footwear in a meaningful way. Yeah. Not a, for lack of a better words, like gotcha marketing type of a thing. It's like this is, and I think that's what we're trying to talk about, like the difference between innovation and design is like, well, it's like, I think a lot of times I think, oh, it's just like inordinate amounts of timeline. Like you're going to just have all the time you want. But what it also comes down to is like the purity of an idea.
Well, I think it's best. It works best when innovation comes first.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're exploring an idea and you don't care about how it looks or whatever. You just want to make it function or work. You're exploring how this is going to be something.
Right.
And then make it look pretty. Then get design in there and just style it up and make it look fantastic.
Yeah. Right.
But that's where I came from. Yeah. I'd come up with all these ideas, and designers would come around and look at my desk, and I'd leave them all out there for him to look at. And oh, can I take that? Sure, here we go.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, were you like that's also something too, where that's a very like footwear culture type of thing. You're saying you just left like your ideas are just out on the table. I think a lot of people try to like
hold them very close.
Clutch pearls.
The problem with that, if you try to hold an idea like that. Is that you kill, and this is not just in what I'm talking, if you talk about some of the great artists and stuff, it's about, you have to let it go to get the next thing. If you don't let it go, you lock your brain up basically. You create a wall. You want to let that wall, let it go. I had a friend that was a really great painter, and every year or at least he would take a week and just do, he'd do like a portrait a day. He'd come in and but usually he'd spend a lot of time and just all fine detail and everything, but he'd just like whip through them. Sometimes he's doing more than one a day, just whipping through stuff. Yeah. Just so he could unlock his, the flow of how things were coming to him. Yeah.
Right. And then I think when you're going at that kind of pace, I think you notice a lot more too, like, and the speed at which you're learning what your own hand is doing, how paint's working together, how oh man. But then just to be able to get the idea out into the world, put a bow on it, so to speak, and then go into the next one. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
So now I'm doing my starting to do my own things. I swore I'd never do my own sort of product, but I'm trying to do something with just little slippers. Yeah. I started with the simplest thing I could do, but the idea is that eventually, if I keep it going, it becomes more and more. Yeah. And I'd like to get into a trail shoe or a hiking shoe because I love to do that. Yeah. But I'm not starting out there. I'm starting out with simple. Yeah. And I also working with kids with disabilities through a church group. They're all over the world, so I'm making stuff, and
that's cool.
And but the challenge there, like some of the challenges are, they want a shoe for this community or this group, but I originally they came to me, how can you make something like make it in Asia and ship it to them? And I go, no, I'll do it for you, but I want to show you how to make it there. Yeah. Oh, wow. In their environment with the materials they have. Yeah. So right now I have a charge to do a soccer shoe for these kids. Yeah. Down in Madagascar, they want to do their own production of their own soccer shoes. Yeah. So how can I find the simplest way to make a soccer shoe? So that's the
brief.
Challenge. Is
how
do you make it so simple that you can make it? They might have a sewing machine. That's all. Exactly. That's it. And that's got to be really simple patterning. Yeah.
and to operate that sewing machine.
Yeah,
who
but
knows it
I have a new 3D printer I paid $250 for, and it can print like crazy.
Yeah.
So I figure, well, they can afford it. They can send
Yeah.
a 3D printer down there to
Yeah.
do the sort of plate type of concept.
Yeah.
But everything kind of weaves together, or flows
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. Oh man. And that like we talked about this in an episode with another designer, but when you're handed something like that, we're literally like, I love that sentence of just like easy or like simple, like the simplest possible way to a soccer cleat or a boot or whatever it is. It could be just
how do I get there?
And that's the brief, like the simplest possible thing so that anyone can just pick it up and do it. Like that's like, that sends you off in a bunch of different directions.
Yeah, and I want to make part of that the 3D printer, because I think that's something, give those kids an opportunity to well, then maybe they could even put their own name on it and stuff.
Yeah.
Then they're using they're learning computer skills, but then also like their community now has a resource to use for other things. It's not just for shoes, right?
It's not big money, like $250. I have a machine that can easily print
out of the box,
print a plate.
Right.
And a real simple. I just want to do simple little lugs that you just poke into a piece of leather.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh man. Yeah, that's even. I mean, because I was thinking like.
I was thinking
a plate that you just put the upper straight onto.
Yeah. Well, you could do that with like the weaving. You could weave if you did a woven shoe.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking it just pokes through a piece of leather.
Oh,
and because I don't want to use glue either.
Yeah.
See, I'm taking these things out of it.
Take it out of the
that
equation.
are either dangerous or too complicated.
Yeah, right.
And
it's another piece. It's like you could probably just get it done with thread. That's another, like, you could put that in the brief as well. It's like thread, material, 3D printer.
Right.
Yeah.
Make a boot.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then how do you make that easily scalable for all the different children's feet?
Yeah.
Well, the patterns I'm working on now that I teach in my class, you don't even need a last. It's a shoe that you can make without a last if you wanted to.
Right.
I make foam lasts that I send with my little shoe kit to people.
Yeah.
But that's just to learn about a last, and you can use it to help form the toe a little bit.
Yeah.
But you don't need it to create it.
Yeah, exactly.
I have one of those foam lasts. I have a pair of foam lasts from you as well.
Yeah.
Man. And
some of the concepts, like there's a shoe called the turn shoe, which is a very simple sort of moccasin type shoe that's been made around the world for thousands of years.
Right.
And so that's a great sort of platform to start from.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about building up Mike's resume. Man, that's a span of time. So probably.
I mean, you've been in this game.
You've
how
been
doing 45 years.
Man.
Yeah.
So starting with Bowerman.
Yeah.
Making
in college.
Yeah. And now you're here. But yeah, so Mike has this awesome space, and you come in here, and it's like Portland, and it's a maker's space, and it just like feels. It's really quiet. It's nice.
Feels like a library. There's like almost a museum too. There's like museum cases with things and artifacts, and every little nook and cranny is stuffed with like history.
Yep. Yeah. And one of the times I came, Mike was like, "Hey, read that book over there. It's the Book of Feet. Like talks about the bones and like all the biomechanical things." I'm like, he's got it all. Plus some materials here and there, and
I'm always finding new things too.
Yeah,
so it's not. Well, it's a never-ending story.
Yeah. So I guess that's kind of into today. Like, what's driving you? Because I mean, you're still here. You could have said, like I'm done, but you're still going.
This space may come to an end because the rent's getting kind of crazy, but that's something I have to work out in June.
Go buy a pair of Tuffles right now.
Yeah, my lease.
So Mike can stay.
My lease is up in June, and then I don't know what I'm gonna have to ask right away what they're gonna charge for the next step. So, anyway, that's the barrier I'm trying to figure out. But
I was gonna say, like we've had with other people, we've done like We've had people bring on shoe samples of stuff they've done and like stuff they're interested in. So Mike's got some stuff on the table. Colin's already drooled a couple times.
Yes.
But
yeah. So one thing I brought here, going back to the Presto, that next evolution, there was supposed to be an evolution of the Presto every 2 years, we thought.
Yeah.
And we thought, and it took off and was really successful. So we thought the next, from my part, for the upper, we'd go to a one-piece upper and a knit upper.
Yeah.
And so we were exploring using sock machines and and we had another team doing flat knit, developing these really interesting samples. This was the first sample that was just made like a sock.
Yeah.
But we were just trying to break out different lines. And then eventually we'd use different yarns. We actually started dialing it in. And we presented that to marketing and they go, we can't sell that shoe, it looks like a sock.
That's so funny.
That's hilarious.
And then, what is it?
Yeah.
6 or 8 years later, there's
Every shoe looks like a sock.
Everything looks like a sock.
Yeah.
So anyway, that kind of killed the next evolution of what the Presto would have been.
Right.
And we were really rocking on it, man. We had, it probably would have been flat knit. These were circular knit.
Yeah.
Could I see the sock with the overlays on it real quick?
This is actually Chief of Film, because I had a good relationship with them, and I learned that if I heated up Chief of Film enough, just in the hot press, it would melt into the fibers of what I was doing.
Yeah.
That's before we, at least in the sample room, we didn't have hot melt with adhesive on it.
Yeah.
So I was just making it go in by just melting it, melting the TPU.
You just have a press?
Yeah, Nike at the time we had a hot press.
T-shirt press.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Almost scrimming it.
So that was that's now everything looks like that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
Can I get a video of this?
is that a sock that was made there? Or is that just a sock like you found?
That sock was it was made in Fox River.
Yeah.
Back east, and that was when we were developing. We were working on what was called the X machine. It was a circular knit machine that could make all kinds of shapes and forms.
Yeah.
Disney was using it to put Mickey Mouse noses and ears and stuff on their socks for kids.
Oh my gosh.
So we ended up doing, like, the upper had pockets in it, knitted into it.
Yeah.
We had a contoured top line. We reversed the toe seam to the bottom.
Yep.
Because the machine could do anything.
Yeah.
And so we really, it's even better than just a lot of stuff you see today.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that all, like I said, died
Man.
for a while. Now everything sucks. So this is another. This was originally I did this kind of thing for similar to this for Tinker, which became the Trunner.
Yeah, I was gonna say that looks like a Trunner.
And so I built the first sort of prototypes that became the Trunner.
Yeah.
But then I used the similar thing for Dave Scanoni to create I think, what was this called? The Teleria, I think. I can't remember what this one was called.
And what's the concept?
Well, this one was by having the open area here, you could just step into it.
Yeah, right.
It was easy to get on and off. It was almost hands-free step into.
Yeah.
And then I developed this metal clip on the back that could adjust the heel grip.
Oh, no way.
And this actually won an award in Scientific America.
Yeah.
Or was it Scientific America? One of those. I mean, that's not Scientific
Something.
America. One of the magazines that won a sort of an innovation kind of award.
Right.
I actually have the copy over there on the bookshelf somewhere. But
Sure.
but it was just basically trying to make a Gumby man concept on the heel.
Yeah.
And
Like the nose bridge on masks, right?
Yeah.
Like, but you can kind of like
Yeah,
contour to your own heel.
Your own heel, because we did. It was just to give it more integrity back here.
Yeah.
And so won a science award thing. But Toby and I worked on it, and we were making the metal parts out of Davis Tool here in town, and overmolding it in the shop, and with TPU, or no, it was
Something.
a urethane. Anyway, I'm not sure what the exact formula was. But when the metal comes out of the because they stamped it out, it had a sharp edge, so we tumbled it
Oh man.
before we overmolded it. So then it was was pretty solid.
Oh,
We
man.
sent that to so the first season they followed that formula for this shoe, and it was really doing well.
Right.
So the second season, they tried to increase the FOB, so they took that. It was like 5 cents per pair of tumbling, or even less than that. It was just pennies.
Yeah.
So they quit tumbling the metal,
Yeah.
and then when they came out, it was cutting through, and it cut somebody.
Oh.
No.
So this was Nike's biggest recall.
Oh, man.
No way.
It was huge.
Yeah.
So I was part of Nike's biggest recall, but
Hey.
it wasn't.
Hey, there you go.
They weren't following my spec.
Hey.
What can I say?
Yeah. So like, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
No.
Man, that's great.
So wait, does this one also have the heel clip?
This one I use. This was what I learned doing the woven shoe. The needles they use to thread those cords through the insole are made out. It's the spring steel from a windshield wiper blade,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Okay.
they just attach the cord to it, and then it's like a big needle, but it's
Yeah.
flexible,
Yeah.
and it's flat, so it
Oh,
fits through
man.
the slot in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
insole.
yeah.
So I took some of those. I started collecting old windshield wiper blades.
There you go.
All you got to do is go to a service station. You'll find them.
Yeah,
everywhere.
exactly.
They're everywhere.
And so in here, there's 3 strips of the windshield wiper blade.
Can I see that?
That was my first prototype for this
So-
this heel.
I think I just put 2 and 2 together here. So you're saying if I had to like make a brief, I'm not trying to, but it's supposed to be easy on, easy off. But when you get it easy on, you want to have some kind of mechanism to lock a little bit. And so you're trying to like grab the heel. Or
Yeah,
like,
and some people have. I mean, heels are not all the same size. So, and this was looser in the heel because the sidewalls were cut down.
right.
So I wanted something to adapt to different sizes. And we thought about going beyond this and coming out with a plastic version of this.
Right.
Right.
But it wasn't adaptable, but it was like spring loaded. But we never this concept died. So
Yeah, I was gonna say like I don't know that there's a plastic out there that you could deform and have it hold its shape.
well,
like
it
this.
would be just solid, but it'd be like a clip, you know.
Oh, I see what you mean.
And
And
That is like solid feeling.
as
you'd have to
I'm-
engineer it so you had a spring in the clip that kept the same pressure over a range of widths.
Yeah.
And you can see here you did reliefs on this overlay so that you still get the stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That was because we were playing around at the time with sort of the kirigami where you're cutting
Yeah.
and loud different stuff. But that's Scanoni's design. But he was using it started with simple upper like that.
Right.
And then I was building in all this.
Man.
This might have been one of the ones Toby and I made, this actual heel clip.
What's crazy is like as I'm bending this thing, I can bend it into this shape, I can bend it into that shape, and if I depress the middle, I can do like
It's
yeah,
Gumby
okay.
Man.
Yeah, it can really move.
Yeah.
That's so funny that you say Gumby because I love Gumby. I used to have one as a kid.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So then this concept, I made this upper. This is about the 3rd or 4th one I made.
Right.
And this is my design, this upper, but it didn't fly when it actually went to production because LeBron Drucker picked it up. They
Yeah.
saw this sample and they go, we want that. So, but this was something, in 2013, I went back to work on the beanbag kind of concept.
Yep.
Toby told me, I was walking by Toby's desk and he goes, Mark Parker just sent me an email. He said, there's a kid that he says he's an athlete, but he can't get the shoes on. And it turned out he had cerebral palsy and a big brace on his legs. So,
Yeah.
and we'd done zipper heels before.
Yeah.
So I quickly made a pattern for this upper and I put a zipper on it. The first one is over there too, but it's just a one piece of material basically with a zipper.
Right.
So I put the zipper in, so the heel opened up. And then I thought, well, but as soon as I put it on, it was about my size. I put it on, the zipper worked, but then the front was just all splayed open.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, I got to find a way to make the front close too.
Right.
So I ran a cord from the tip of the zipper that went around
Oh man.
and went into the forefoot to close the forefoot.
And Nike actually still utilizes this in some of their fly shoes.
So this was
I am just now learning that exists.
this was just a zipper, apparel zipper.
Right.
But they designed a special zipper head that actually holds this lace. But then you close it, and then it closes the front. and the further you close here, the tighter that that gets.
Oh,
so this is one hand. You can do one hand adjustment in and out, and that became the first fly ease, and that was the last sort of patented project that was 2013 that Toby and I worked on that.
Yeah. So you're saying that there was a point at which you found that when it would splay open, you still wouldn't be able because they wouldn't be able if your hands free, you wouldn't be able to lace it up. So you're saying you've found that moment where
this is not hands free, but it's still. But it's just but that's just the way they describe all that. It's
accessible. It's more accessible. It maybe possibly.
Or no, this wasn't. Yeah, this wasn't hands free. This was fly ease.
Yeah, fly ease. So it's ease.
Because I did work on stuff that was hands free, but this was supposed to be kind of like hands free.
Yeah, right.
You lace it up once, then you just pop in and out. And I had some other concept for hands free.
Right.
But never one of those. I talk about them with people and stuff like that, but I even talked to Mark Parker about it. I go, we should really go after some hands free concepts. Yeah. And he just wasn't really interested. Yeah. So
I think he did just put out a hands-free thing, a couple a hinged.
So they utilize all of the innovation team at Kizik and hands-free labs.
Nike owns most portion of Kizik.
The split midsole.
That's from them. Yeah,
that's a Kizik thing.
Yeah, no, that's not a Kizik.
I was gonna say
they did that one in their own team.
That's actually something John Hoke and I worked on years ago. But this other guy came in, and we kind of walked away from it because it was all that bulk. It's too bulky outside. But we did find other spring mechanisms that would go in the midsole. Yeah. And those concepts actually, you can find patents going back to early 1900s.
Yeah. Wow.
For those over-centered springs.
Yeah.
So it's not revolutionary, but but we just thought it was too bulky, and so we walked away from it.
Yeah. And anyway, going back to this, I love the thought process of you solved the problem of getting in, but then it introduces the problem of lacing up, and then connecting those two is just that's I didn't know a lace connected to I didn't know that.
Yeah. What's interesting about this, and I've done a couple other things similar, but where basically one action creates two one sort of reaction to do two reactions or whatever. One leads to two. And maybe you could do one leads to three or whatever. So you have it's a system that's more holistic, not just one-on-one.
Yeah. Because the force you're creating by pulling it around could probably be divided. Yeah. Could easily be divided amongst different things. Oh man, that's legit. Crazy. Did we just rapid fire through your?
Yeah. Well, this little thing here. This is my booty that I made for this kid that doesn't have normal feet. She was born basically with little stumps, and same thing. She doesn't really have. I think she's got one or two fingers.
Yeah.
One toe, I think, but no toes.
Yeah.
But so I wanted to make her a booty that would hopefully fit. But I wanted it to kind of look like a shoe. So. This would not fit any normal foot. It's not long enough in the forefoot.
Yeah.
But for her, it makes it kind of look like she has feet and they're normal, to give her some sense of, she can fit in with the kids.
Yeah.
I made 3 different sizes of these. This is my first prototype. The others were cleaner than this.
Yeah.
And I put a rubber sole on them. Yeah. And I had a little bit of foam in there. But once she tries them and she figures out. Because they're 2 different sizes of feet, or what's left, what looks like a foot, and so it might be small on one side and the large one on the other side that I sent.
Right.
And then I'm going to make some nice leather ones for her.
Nice.
But these are just prototypes to test fit and function, and then again, this is going through the innovation process.
Yeah.
First, you're testing it for these different qualities that you want. And then I'll probably learn a few things I need to change on it.
Yep.
And then I'll make it out of nicer material,
Yeah.
But it's not just creating a sketch and then you just go.
Yeah.
This is where you work through the process.
Yeah. Yep.
And to me that's innovation. It's not just drawing something and saying, here, this looks like this is a rocket ship, and it looks like, and this is innovation. You can fly in the shoe, you know.
Right. I love that each. We've talked through a lot of different scenarios, right? You're having, you know, whether it's like, you know, we talk about like cool things like the Presto. We talk about like, running in sand. We talk about all this stuff, but then there's like applications like this where you need someone with like the expertise to dive into this very nuanced, but very, I mean, man, just like, this is the type of footwear project that's like, it's a service, you know, and
yeah, but then again, this is so simple, and they could make it there if they wanted to.
Right.
It's a little bit beyond that, but it could be done. It could be made in a simple way that they could make it there if they had to.
Yeah, right.
Because I don't want to, because it's going to an environment, you know, it's in Uganda, way back in the remote area.
Wow.
Where there's a lot of problems there.
Yeah. Sure.
So with all kinds of, you know, kidnappings and all kinds of things, but so there's really limited resources.
Yeah.
So you want something that they know how to use it.
Yeah, right.
And make it, not, you know, if you send them a complex shoe and it's like, you know, you can't do it. And
that's awesome. So that kind of leads into like, people can contact you for work if people have an idea for a project. What like was that?
Somewhat, yeah. And I'm kind of becoming a little more careful about it.
Yeah.
It's since the pandemic, the environment, the consulting environment has changed a lot. You know, it seems like more people are just interested in, again, illustrations. They're not really like, I want to work through a process. But nobody wants to pay for that. They just want a pretty picture they'll pay for.
Right.
Yeah. But that it takes that process of working through the concept, you know, and trying different things and exploring to really get somewhere special.
Right.
It just doesn't pop onto a piece of paper.
Right. Are you explaining that to people? Like,
I try, but a lot of people say they'll shake your head. Yeah. Then when you're actually doing it, they go,
like,
where's the stuff? I want more stuff. And as well, it doesn't just happen overnight. You know, you gotta, you know, like the last project like that, similar to that, I was doing a lot of material research and I was coming up with my own material ideas.
Right.
I did and created an entirely new concept for a plate that I think is a rock star plate, but I don't know where it's going to go now. And then a new last, and the size, all those things before you get to the picture.
Yeah.
But you got to get all these things together that you know what's going to go into the picture.
Yeah.
Not just like, I mean, you can do it the other way, but then to try to make that into something real is really tough.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you have the parts and they're
the function is there and locked in and has been explored.
And that particular project, I'm not going to say who it was for or anything, but that particular project I had to be super, super light, you know, as a track shoe.
Yeah.
So every component, I wanted to make it as light as possible.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I was focused on that and not just like go and take that off the shelf and whatever, and, you know. Yeah. Or follow with what's popular right now with all these carbon fiber plate things.
Yeah, sure.
That's a longer story, but there's they're even banning some of them because of the way they're configured.
Sure.
And I don't think they're even necessary. Like the shoe I built for Allison Felix, you know, this one right here. This shoe only weighed 4 ounces. Yeah. And I followed the specs on the plate that she was used to running in for years. Yeah. I would have made it different, even lighter. Yeah. But I wanted it to match what she was comfortable with, because we didn't have a long timeline. It was for the Olympic trials and Olympics. Yeah. But super, super light. And this pattern is just one piece that flays out. Oh man. And 4 ounces. And so she had the lightest shoe on the track. Yeah. Everybody else had these new fancy carbon fiber plates, you know. Sure. But they were a lot heavier. Mm-hmm. And she just kicked butt, you know. Yeah. That's I mean, what I'm looking at is a work of art. Yeah.
That's what and that's the theme I think I've been feeling as you've been talking. I'm like, this is, well, it's innovation and it's this and this. Like, if there's a measure of artwork to it.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I worked with Natalie on that, Natalie Carradine on that too.
Yeah.
She did the style lines and stuff on it.
yeah.
But
But your pattern.
my pattern, yeah, and then the engineering the plate and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
but all the style lines came from her, and she's great. She does beautiful work.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say, does your history of track come up when you're doing this type of stuff? Like, is all that being brought to mind as well?
Yeah. That's the Bowerman's one of his main things was make it light. You know,
Yeah.
it was make it light, make it go the distance, and make it fit. And that it's not making it fit doesn't mean just making it fit your foot. Make it fit the function. What's the purpose?
Right.
I like that.
Ooh. Fit has different meanings. Has more than one. Nice.
Fit is dynamic in its meaning as well as its fit.
Yeah.
Right.
Colin, I'm sorry. You were gonna say something.
No. I was just gonna say, I kind of going off of what you're saying is, I think as much as you would say you're not, a designer, you don't do traditional design. Like I think you are. I mean, you're
Well, yeah,
you're
but
following a design process.
But that's not. If I had a list of things that I would call myself, that would be down the list. It's not the top of the
not
list.
at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you're an artisan and you're a crafts person, and those skills are invaluable in this industry. Just the wealth of knowledge that you have, and also just the ability to problem solve, and something that we didn't really talk about that you're doing here is that you're jumping from one thing to the next. There's almost a common thread through what you're looking at, right? Like, so you went to Mexico as a teenager in high school, and then you kind of see this thing and you're like, I'm gonna go do that, and then while you're doing that, you're seeing them use spring steel and for weaving the shoes, and then you're like, hey, I can use that spring steel in this concept because I want the fit to be, you're using everything you've seen and done to accomplish a functional goal, which I think is amazing.
Well, when we cut this sidewall down on this shoe, to pattern this, it always wanted to splay out.
Yeah.
So that was part of that function.
Oh my gosh. Of course it wants to splay out.
Yeah.
It's like material memory. It's just like kind of like, and how, like,
There, you can spring the pattern somewhat, but that was more secure.
Yeah. Oh man. But this is proto, right? Like, this isn't.
No, that's it. But that was just the extra sample I made to keep, so I could, if I ever need to recreate it, I have a sample. I didn't glue it together, so you can look at the whole thing.
Yeah. We'll take some B-roll, some quick
It's,
B-roll.
And Carrie back here, she did a lot of the work on it too.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's the other thing that's been going on. Like,
this is a
Carrie's
studio.
back here just working.
Yeah.
Just
We got sewing operators here.
It's awesome. Oh man, and I don't know. I know. Like, necessarily, like, don't look at all the design, but it's like a glass slipper. It's like got this elegance to it.
We made them in black, white, and a baby blue, which they called Seiche blue.
Yeah,
is our color.
The brand is Seiche.
Were you doing foot shape as well on this, or was that pretty locked in?
No, I stayed. Okay. I stayed with a last that was similar to a Nike last, because that's what she'd been running it for years.
Yeah. Right.
And we didn't have a lot of time, because if I would have built something sort of how I sort of a custom thing the way I would want to do it,
right.
If I had my choice,
it
would take time for her to adapt to it.
Right.
And we didn't have that time.
Yeah. Do we want to talk? I mean, man,
I think that's everything. Like,
I'm all about making sure we talk just a little bit about your thoughts on last. We don't have to get like deep into it, but I know.
Yeah. The key thing about a last that everybody should be aware of, most designers don't really focus on it,
right.
Unfortunately, is that it's a static form and it's built in a neutral stance.
Yep.
Yep.
That's where your feet are shoulder width apart. You know,
Yeah.
you kind of be balanced and your bones that are in alignment.
Yeah.
There's almost nowhere in an athletic endeavor where you're in that position.
Right.
You know, when you run, your feet come closer together, and the angle of your leg changes. The heel splays towards the medial side, wants to fall off the footbed if you don't have a counter.
Yeah.
But that's where it naturally wants to go. And if you cut, like in basketball shoes or soccer shoes, whatever, the heel naturally wants to splay out. And there's a lot of other dynamic things going on with the foot as you move and perform.
Yeah.
And ideally, you'd create a shoe that follows that, follows the foot, not
Right.
telling the foot, well, it's got to be here or got to be there.
Yeah.
Especially a place where it never wants to be when you're moving.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why you do counters. You do a lot of features that have been sort of added onto the shoe to help keep that shoe on your foot, but it doesn't have most of those don't have anything to do with being dynamic or moving with the foot.
Right.
But there's all kinds of little
It's almost
tricks.
like it's like at least I know for running, you're only concerned about one direction.
but it's not even in that. It's not even that position.
Yeah. Right. Oh man.
Yeah.
It's not in a running stance,
yeah.
and it's not
a running stance.
not skewed to that medial the way your foot does when you're running.
Oh man, it's all been on standing.
Yeah. So like when Nike first came out with like the early days, the Cortez and things like that,
Yeah.
which they did with ASIC before that.
Yeah.
Oh, that Nike, they had the Cortez first. That was part of Bowerman and
Yeah.
Nike.
Yeah.
And they'd have a really narrow midsole on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And people were falling off of it. So they would add, okay, let's add a counter. We'll hold them on there. Okay, they add a counter. Then they were still pronating a lot.
Yeah.
So let's add the arch cookies. So they keep adding all these Band-Aids
Yeah.
to accommodate the problem that they created. Also part of that pronation was because they elevated the heel.
Yeah.
That increases the pronation.
Yeah.
So they put all these Band-Aids to try to correct the problem. Instead of correcting the cause, they correct the symptom. They try to Band-Aid the symptom,
Right.
or whatever. And so that's kind of the tradition of shoemaking.
Yeah. Right.
Just like adding length to the last, assuming that your foot gets longer going forward,
Yeah.
and it doesn't. It gets longer going behind the ball of the foot.
Right.
So by not accommodating that, as soon as you get up on the ball of your foot is being driven forward,
Yeah.
and you got friction. Your toes are running into the end. And if you're on it, like say go trail and you're downhill, you initiate that slide inside the shoe, and then it doesn't want to stop.
Yeah.
That's how you get black toenails. It's like, yeah.
But if you accommodate that, there's a lot of, and in my dynamic fit class, I have a number of different ways to accommodate it.
Yeah.
Then your foot stays firmly planted, and you're fine.
Right.
And there's all that dynamic movement. There's little tricks you can do in the design of the shoe to accommodate dynamic movement.
Right.
Yeah, in my dynamic class, I talk about them. I don't want to just state a problem without a possible solution.
Right.
And the possible solution, I hope, leads to other solutions.
Right.
Sure.
It's not just like there's one solution.
Yeah. Kind of like how you work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to help
But I
others
just
do
want to
that.
get people started down a path where they're
Yeah.
trying to solve the problems, especially in the barefoot shoes. I wish they would open up their vision a little bit,
Yeah.
because I think they're on the right path, trying to be more natural.
Yeah.
But they're also not, because they're not open to
Yeah.
the
Right.
whole dynamic movement.
Right.
Is there anything else you want to ask?
I mean,
We could be here for days.
that opened my mind. Was like, does any of that have to do with like what free was? Like,
Oh God,
I don't want to. I mean,
I had to be careful what I say there, because I don't want to make people. I don't want to.
no.
There was a lot of problems with free, and I wrote a list. I wrote a list of 14 issues around free.
Oh man.
What the difference between being in a normal the shoes that we were used to wearing and being barefoot. How 14 differences in how the things you need to address to get to that sort of barefoot stance.
Yeah.
And I told the group that you've got about 2.5 of these. We should go for all of them.
Yeah.
And then that created
Wow. So there was
silence.
like a there's like a free like somewhere out in the ether.
There's other shoes out
There's
there that do a much better job.
Sure. Well, there's like
There's some of the stuff that come out of Asia is a lot more dynamic.
Yeah, interesting.
And they're real stretchy and form fitting and
Yeah.
accommodate. You know, I have a pair at home that I use for hiking training.
Yeah.
And it's designed for paddleboard.
Right.
There's no cushion at all, but everything's stretchy. It's like a sock on your foot.
Yeah.
But it has just enough protection for me that I put a 30-pound weight vest on and I go hiking down the trails.
Yeah.
And to strengthen my feet and plus immediately you get a whole different, you start becoming more aware of what's on the ground.
Yeah.
You're not walking straight down the trail anymore. You're kind of meandering. You're following the path of least resistance.
Right.
You're not getting pitched all over because, you're not landing heavy on your heel. You're shortening your stride because if you land heavy on your heel, it's going to hurt
Yeah.
like it naturally would.
Man.
So
You're working more muscles too. You're using your
but
hips.
And when I first do that, the first couple of times, I haven't started this year yet. I'm pretty sore, but not like an injury sore. Just like
Yeah.
I've worked little muscles I haven't worked in a while.
Yeah.
And
Oh man, I almost want you to talk more about that. You're saying, what's funny is I'm like imagining like Mike Friton on the doors of Nike, just like nailing like 14-point. This is what we should do for.
no,
like,
I just made a list and passed it around.
Yeah, it's like,
Then I wasn't invited to meetings anymore. No.
oh man.
Oh no.
I cut
that-
myself out of it.
But what that's interesting though, like, yeah, it's like there's somewhere out there, there's 12 more points that need to be.
Well, that was the Bowerman in me, and that's Bowerman was always butting heads with their people at Nike, and
Yeah.
so and I saw it's kind of what I learned, but I try not to go there, but occasionally it comes out.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's when you get passionate about something, like, I mean, I've done it, but man, so we just find Mike Friton's out in the trails in Oregon on his barefoot shoes.
oh, hopefully, but yeah, it's been a while. And I hope I can get a chance to get out this year.
Usually spring, summer, you get out when the rain kind of takes off.
It depends. I'm also on a rowing team, so that's my main focus is getting out in the boat and rowing.
Just out here on the.
I will it.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
over on my 3D printer, I'm using it to print some ideas I came up to better ideas for the boat.
There you go.
So
It's not just shoes. It's everything. That's how your mind works.
Of course.
Well, Mike,
Yeah.
it's been amazing.
Yeah.
I like getting to see, behind the curtain, look at your history, see what you've done, but then also kind of like what you're continuing to do. I mean, you once an innovator, always an innovator. I feel like, I don't know that it's ever going to stop for you. It's just going to keep
probably
on
not.
going.
Yeah. Gets you in trouble sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Shoes, boats. Doesn't matter.
How can people find you?
Just freetondesign.com.
FreetonDesign.com.
And
Go
then
check out the Tuffles.
Are you making your own shoes? Is this your own?
Just little slippers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, start simple.
They're
Is
very
this
comfy.
online? Or
I'd
you
like to
just
do
come-
something more complex, but I'm, just to set up to do that. I mean, plus you have to reach a certain point in volume before you. Right now, it's not. I'm lucky if I'm breaking even.
Yeah.
But I've wanted to offer it to a company
Yeah.
that are right next door, which I shouldn't say their name
Yeah.
because
Sorry.
they recently said they weren't interested, at least not now. So I still don't want to stop. I want to keep going.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm working I'm going over and doing the markets in Astoria. They
Yeah.
have cruise ships that come in,
Yeah.
and I love that area. I have a lot of friends over there, so I go over there and have some fun.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oregon coast is beautiful.
So you're just making. What is it? Say it again.
Tuffle.
Tuffle.
Tuffle, yeah.
Tuffle shoes?
It's a Norwegian word for slipper.
Wool and
'Cause
suede.
I sent my friend in Norway. I sent her a picture. I go, I don't know what to call these. What do you think? And she goes, oh, those are tuffles. I go, what's that? She goes, slipper.
Yeah.
so,
Tuffle.
so that's what happened. So,
Yeah. That's awesome.
Handmade right here in Portland, Oregon.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and there's a big push now to bring manufacturing back to Portland. There's a group that's gotten millions of dollars downtown to do that.
Yeah. I went
And
check that out.
I'm already doing it. I'm already trying to do that, and but they haven't sent me $1 yet.
Oh
That's gone.
man. Hit up Mike. All Are these only available here? Can people buy them online, or is it just
Yeah, it's on my website.
Oh,
Yeah.
sweet.
I have a
Okay.
Shopify account.
Nice.
I haven't promoted. That's my weak point is promoting it. I need.
Well, 115 people know about
115
it.
people now know about Tuffles. Go get yourself a pair right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm working on that, trying to get better
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, Mike, we appreciate it. Like, the more we do this podcast, the more I'm trying to just like make I don't know. It's starting to feel sometimes like I'm trying to journal like footwear and like the journey.
Yeah.
And it's being attacked from all different, like people are doing stuff all over the place, but I definitely want to like have an entry for Mike Friton. It's like, this is what you've done. This is your contribution.
Yeah. A lot of the stuff out there is, I know it's really popular, but it doesn't really resonate with me.
Yeah.
I was even invited over to Beaverton to a group for all the shoe collectors.
Yeah.
And they were flying in from all over the country coming to this, and they had some of the shoes I worked on. They're talking about there. And it's just like, that's not what it was about.
Yeah.
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 It was that to me. It's kind of, I don't know. It just doesn't have the same. It's about, well, what went into that design? How did that come about? Not, oh, look at this. This is cool retro. You got to have this one.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
There's a collector side that comes out.
Yeah.
Pretty hard.
And the fashion side.
Yeah.
And I'm not into the fashion side so much.
Yeah.
It's important, but to me, that's not the starting point. Should be somewhere else.
Yeah. But yeah, well, I'm just glad that, well, also thank you for letting us come in here.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for allowing us in the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, honestly, it's been an honor to just hear stories. It's like,
That's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, seriously.
Don't say that, because I will come back.
Yeah, we will come back.
Because I love to hear it, and man, got a little bit of the puzzle coming together.
Yeah, a little bit of the tessellation going.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks. I think this is a good place to just say that's good. Well, we can all digest that.
If
again,
you stuck around, thank you for watching, and
check out Mike.
Check out Mike
online. If you're feeling spendy, get a Tuffle.
Go get a pair of Tuffle.
Yeah, I was like, Tuffle.
Yeah.
Get a pair of Tuffle. I'm terrible with names. Get a Tuffle.
Yeah, or take my class.
Or take. Oh yeah.
Yeah, where can we find
There
your
you go.
dynamic fit class?
Just online. Through my website.
If you really wanted masterclass, hit up Mike for the class.
Yeah.
And get the real download.
Exactly.
All right, that's Tech Packs Are Due. That's us. All right.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Peace, guys.
The bigger chunks, and there's the plywood industry where they take just a bucket of that and throw it in this and sand down surface on stuff. And so that's where I got from the plywood industry. One of Bill's excursions with Bowerman, we go out. That's a whole other story. To talk about how we made the waffle soles. The Oregon the tire place to get the rubber, to get out to the plywood. We would punch holes in aluminum plates and go out to the plywood mill and press it to make waffles.
Yeah.